What's up, guys? This story about what Naruto most strongest Shinobi in the world. Let's start.
As Naruto was walking back to the village after completing his final training trip of 4 years, he thought back as to the reason why he went on this training trip. Flashback. Tsunade looked at the young man before her, perplexed. The threat of Kagaya and Madara Uchiha had just ended and Naruto came to her, asking for her permission to go. Last training trip. Tsunade asked him, "Why do you want to go on a training trip now of all times, Naruto?" Naruto looked at her, eyes filled with grief and sadness, but it was not hard, never hard to spot the determination in his eyes. Ba-chan, in the recent past, Konoha has Su. From the threats of both Akatsuki and Madara Uchiha, I've had this feeling that I'm not strong enough. Tsunade raised her eyebrows in surprise, but Naruto, you have grown very powerful. Obtaining the Sage Mode, unlocking the full potential of Kyuubi's power, they are no ordinary feats. Naruto explained to her, I know Ba-chan, but I've had this feeling for a while now. Something telling me that I've not achieved my full potential yet. Tsunade tried to control her jaw, but it unhinged anyways. All of that power and he still had yet to achieve his full potential. After a few moments, she recovered and looked. The person who had become the closest thing she had to a son and asked in utmost seriousness, you still haven't fully answered my question, Naruto. Why do you want to? More power by going on this training trip? Naruto replied with desperation in his voice, because my current level is not enough. Even after obtaining the Sage Mode, pain almost destroyed the whole of Konoha. I lost you and my friends. Not to mention Arrow Sennin because I could not strong fast enough. He had tears going down his face by the end of his explanation. Tsunade was trying to control her own tears. Jiraiya was still a sore topic for her. Her closest friend had given his life to destroy the Akatsuki and keep Naruto safe. Looking Naruto, it was clear that he felt helpless to stop his death. Naruto continued, the power that I have now is insufficient to protect this village, Ba-chan. I can't bear to see you in pain again. Tsunade contemplated her answer and, few moments said, all right, you have my permission to go this training trip. She realized that he hadn't told her with whom he would be going. With whom are you going on this trip, Naruto? Naruto smiled, alone. I also need some time to clear my head of everything that's happened in the recent times. Tsunade wanted to protest but she could see that Naruto did need some time away. His cheerfulness had somewhat faded and from what she could tell some alone time woe. Him good. Okay. You have my permission to go on this training trip. Will you be telling your friends and Sasuke of this? Just the mention of Sasuke left a sour taste in his mouth and angry expression on his face. After Madara's threat was over, Sasuke had gone back to his stick in the mud attitude, acting as if he was everybody's better. Because of the council, Tsunade couldn't exile or banish the lost Uchiha. The council had insisted that he be given the rank of Jonin because of his efforts against Madara. Tsunade had furiously reminded them of his betrayal of Konoha and various other catastrophes that had Sasuke's name written all over them. It was decided that he would light probation for a year, much to Tsunade's annoyance. Naruto had tried to talk to him multiple times but was always brushed up by the Uchiha, saying he had nothing to with him. He even had the gall to say that if not for him, the village would always be in danger despite Naruto doing anything. Naruto never talked to him after that, fearing that he kill him. Tell my friends except Sasuke and Sakura the truth that I have gone on a training trip. Best not let Sasuke know, the power-hungry bastard and Sakura, she would just BL him and he would give you grief over it. Just tell him I have gone to search for my parents' heritage. To find out if I have any more family left. Tsunade nodded and signed the document. That would allow him to go and come back. Flashback end. Naruto had walked away from his home, alone for the first time. He had traveled and trained with Kurama for a few days, who had informed him of a man who was without question the most powerful warrior in the world, with only the Sage of Six Paths ahead of him by a close margin. Naruto had eagerly asked him if he was alive and if he was. Where could he find him? Kurama told him that the man was so powerful he was immortal in a sense. The country of lightning had once asked the man to join their side. Refused. Kumogakure, under the rule of the first Raikage, had launched an attack on him and not a single person had survived from the village. The story had spread to other nations with a very clear message: the man wanted to be left alone. If they kept their distance from him, he would keep his. With this information in mind, Naruto traveled according to Kurama's directions for almost 2 weeks. After a lot of struggle, Naruto and Kurama finally reached their destina. Flashback. Holy shit, was the first thing Naruto said when he saw the home of the warrior Kurama had described. A huge castle stood 1,000 yards away from him, but that was nada. Aura around the place was simply saturated with power. Just as he was about to take a step ahead, a man seemingly appeared out of thin air and set his gaze upon him. He had a very muscular build with wavy black hair, and his facial features were concealed by a large, unique mask with 3 horns. His attire consisted of a dark-colored trimmed overcoat that is left open, exposing his chest, with seemingly ripped-off sleeves. The bottom of his outfit had 2 layers. The first layer was tied in a bow around his waist. The second layer covered his feet. His presence was simply overwhelming, so much that Naruto couldn't help himself and involuntarily fell down on his knees. In his mind, Kurama was yelling at Naruto to get grip, but Naruto was transfixed by the warrior standing in front of him. Vanir Lord was meditating when he felt a chakra signature approaching his home. Curious as to who had the guts to approach his home after he had made it very clear wanted to be left alone, he opened his eyes after 70 years and used his sensing ability to teleport himself to the signature. Look up versus Battles Wiki, Vanir lore. He did not expect to find an adolescent with a traveling kit. Upon his arrival, he watched in amusement as the child fell to his knees. He smirked inside his mask. Of course will kneel. My presence is overwhelming. Who are you, child, and what are you doing here? Naruto gulped at the sheer authority and power that his voice carried. Gathering his wits and trying desperately to stutter, he replied, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, sir, and I am on a training trip. Vanir quirked an eyebrow beneath his mask. Training trip? This ought to be interesting. Why are you here then? I'm sure my message to all the villages. Pretty clear to keep their distance, he said with a bit of annoyance seeping into his voice. Naruto noticed the annoyance and was starting to tremble a bit. He was about to reply when the warrior spoke up again. Why do I sense one of the tailed beast's wit? You child, is it the beast that led you here? At this, Kurama spoke to Naruto in his mind. Naruto, let me take over. It's for the best that I talk to him than you. Naruto inwardly nodded and let Kurama take over. Vanir easily sensed the spike of demonic chakra and raised an eyebrow. Was the boy really going to fight him with the tailed beast? He immediately fired a chakra ice projectile at blinding speeds. The boy stood no chance as it encased him in a small ice prison, leaving only his head free. Kurama desperately spoke, give us a chance to speak, Lord Vanir. Vanir paused, the memory of the voice coming to him after a few moments. Kurama. Were you here? While Kurama was an expert in hiding his emotions, even he sweat a little before Vanir Lord. This was the only man besides the Sage of Six Paths could easily subdue him. He spoke carefully, Lord Vanir, I am the one who guided this boy to you in the hope that you could train him. Seeing no reaction, he was about to speak again, but Vanir was already speaking, train him. Why do you think that I'll even consider such a request? I sense. The boy is already in control of all your full power, making him the strongest being in the world after me. Why does he seek more power? Kurama replied, Lord Vanir, perhaps you would want to talk to Naruto. He can explain the answer to your question. With that, Kurama gave the control B. Naruto. Naruto looked up into the mask of Vanir, determination back in his eyes and the earlier fear completely forgotten. Lord Vanir, I seek more power to protect my close ones and my home, he replied. Vanir stared in Naruto's eyes for a long time, validating the authenticity of the reply. Is the level of power that you currently have not enough? Having full access to Kurama's power makes you very powerful, he asked curiously. Naruto let out a sad sigh. No, Lord Vanir, in the recent past, it hasn't been enough. When I finally mastered Sage Mode and went to battle with the Akatsuki, Almo's whole village was destroyed along with its inhabitants. When I finally mastered Kurama's power, it was still not enough to take care of Kagaya. For 2 times my loved ones almost destroyed, and I was powerless to stop it. That is why I am here, to seek the power to protect my home, he finished with determination. Vanheer contemplated the boy's answer. On one hand, he could simply tell the boy to go away, but on the other hand, this boy reminded him so much of the lone warrior. Had no legacy and wasn't willing to die until he created one, but he hadn't found anyone worthy of wielding his power. Seeing nothing but the pure truth in his eyes, Van made his decision. He walked away. Naruto couldn't believe it. He gave an honest answer without leaving anything out, and the man still refused to train him. Just as he was about to shout something, Vanhe spoke up. Come on, Naruto, this is no place to talk about training. Naruto dumbly blinked his eyes, before the answer kicked in, and he widely smiled, following his master. As Naruto reached to him, Vanheer grabbed Naruto and vanished, appearing in the main hall of the castle less than a second later. Naruto simply blinked, already accustomed to teleportation. Vanheer said, I'm impressed, most people don't take too well to teleportation the first time. Naruto replied evenly, I'm already used to teleportation with the second Hokage and my dad. Vanheer nodded and stood in front of him. My training is nothing like you have ever gone through in your short life, Naruto. In simple words, you will go through hell every day here. If you are going to become my student, will ensure that you will become more powerful than me, if not my equal. Naruto gulped and nodded, already knowing this. The short power display earlier showed that Vanheer was leagues above him. But he will surpass him, no matter what. Vanheer saw the resolve in Naruto's eyes and inwardly nodded. The resolve alone would make sure Naruto survived his training. He just hoped it wouldn't break. Take tea. Largest room in the east wing of the castle and then come to the dinner hall. It's better you start tomorrow. You look absolutely exhausted. Use the night, prepare yourself for the training from tomorrow. Flashback end, and hell it was. Every day, Vanheer drove him into the ground and then ordered him to get up, only to give him an even worse beating. Vanheer had a chamber in his CA. Slowed time down. Every day they did 3 days worth of training, with Vanheer having to carry Naruto back to his room to rest, but Naruto could feel himself improve every day. Vanheer's fighting style was deadly, and his hits had power that made guys' hits look like finger taps. His speed was ridiculous high, as Naruto had to rely on his instincts for the initial part of his training. As he trained, Naruto unconsciously began to adapt Vanheer's fighting style instead of the will that made him look like an idiot. When Vanheer noticed that Naruto began to fight like him, pride welled up in his chest that Naruto was learning so quickly. He made sure that Naruto's unpredictability wavered, as it was the only thing that made his style so deadly. He put him through severe weight training, building up the strength that his fighting style, the God Fist, 6 months after he started Naruto's training, he fought him seriously for the first time. Naruto could give him a decent enough challenge in taijutsu. After the taijutsu, Trihei put Naruto through ninjutsu training. Naruto was shell-shocked when Vanheer told him that he didn't know any ninjutsu. Flashback. What? Naruto exclaimed, his jaw on the floor. Vanheer simply stared at him. Naruto recovered and asked, but how? You are the most powerful being in the world and can't do any ninjutsu. Vanheer shrugged, I simply have no need for it. I simply use raw chakra manipulation to bend the elements. Chakra in its pure form. Much more powerful. The Rasengan of your father is a prime example of that. That is what we will work on achieving. You will be able to control all the elements without the need for hand signs. Flashback end. Naruto's control over his massive chakra reserves was tested to the max. However, with Kurama's help, he was able to control it the way Vanheer wanted very quickly. Performing elemental jutsu without hand signs was very draining. The first time he had performed a wind jutsu perfectly without hand signs, his reserves had dropped to half. He remembered what Vanheer had to say about it. Flashback. Vanheer looked at Naruto, who had dropped to one knee after performing his first jutsu without hand signs. Vanheer explained, it's obvious if you think about it. Body and chakra are not used to being exercised this way. Once you get used to performing jutsus like this regularly, there will come a point when you hardly feel the drop in chakra. Flashback end. Vanheer was right. It took him about a month to get used to performing jutsus without hand signs. His body had adjusted in an amazing way. He had hit a second growth. And rose to 6 feet 1, with lean and tight muscles from all the exercises and sparring with Vandhir. He had grown his hair the way his father had and was a near identical copy, only stronger. His chakra reserves had hit a substantial increase, something that even Vandhir was surprised at. Every day, he would perform the jutsus from the scrolls in Vandhir's library, and every time he performed a jutsu, the drop in his chakra became almost negligible over time. After completing his ninjutsu training, Vandhir had suggested kenjutsu, which had somewhat surprised Naruto. Flashback. Vandhir was looking at Naruto, who was taking a break from his strength-increasing exercise. Suddenly an idea came to him, and he cursed himself for not thinking of it. He walked up to Naruto, who turned his head towards him with a raised eyebrow. Naruto, have you ever used a sword? Naruto shook his head. Nope, never did. I wanted to though. Vandhir grinned underneath his mask. Excellent. Then we will start kenjutsu from tomorrow. Naruto promptly spit out his drink. You are a master at sword fight. 2. Is there anything you are not an expert at? Vandhir just shrugged. Not really. But now that I think about it, my style will not fit you at all, he mused. Naruto asked, why will your style not fit me, sensei? Vandhir looked at him and explained, the fact is, I don't really have a style. I fight like this. With that, he summoned a sword from somewhere and created a clone and began to fight it with his sword. Now that Vandhir started fighting, Naruto could notice that Vandhir had no movement that could be defined as part of a style. He fought like a wild man, with exaggerate swings. But Naruto noticed the power that Vandhir put behind his swings. They came at speeds unimaginable, which forced his clone to block instead of evading. Vandhir dispelled his clone and walked up to Naruto, who said, I see your point, sensei. The way you fight, I can never fight like that. Vandhir nodded and began to run ideas in his head on how to teach Naruto kenjutsu. Suddenly, one of the ideas made him pause. That could work. The next day he and Naruto proceeded to the ritual room, the room where he had once performed rituals on himself to make himself stronger. Naruto asked him, what are doing, sensei? Vandhir answered him, summoning a kenjutsu teacher. He took a box from the cupboard in the room and opened it, revealing ashes inside. He set the box aside for a moment and walked up to the center of the room, in the epicenter of the seal array he had drawn the day before. He put one of his palms on the floor and pushed some chakra. The whole floor of the room lightened up in a golden color, showing various seals arranged in a star pattern. Vandhir dumped half of the ashes in the middle of the sealing array. For the first time since he started training, he saw Vandhir Lord perform hand signs. His hands were a blur, performing signs with speed that would make any ninja jello. Finished his signs in 10 seconds, making Naruto wonder how many seals he performed if his speed was any indication. Vandhir slammed his hands onto the ground, and Naruto felt a huge amount of chakra pulse through the room. The sealing array, which was golden in color, changed too. Vandhir quickly took a ceremonial dagger and cut his palm, making a deep slash. He let his blood on a circular pattern of the array. The circular array glowed after Almo's whole pint of blood had been dripped. After that, Vandhir immediately healed his hand and stood up, acting completely normal as if he hadn't just lost a pint of his blood. He then walked over to the ashes and took out a vial filled with blood. He emptied the whole vial and jumped out of the array. At first nothing seemed to happen, then the room was filled with so much light that his eyes were hurting even when closed. After what seemed like an eternity, the light died down and a figure stood in the middle of array. He was tall as Vandhir Lord. He wore a white trench coat that was buttoned up to the top. He wore a red scarf that hid half of his face from the world. He carried sword in his hand, making Naruto wonder why the man didn't tie it to his waist. The most distinguishing feature about this man was his aura. It was powerful, though not as powerful as his sensei's. Also, unlike his sensei, whose aura was malevolent and oppressive, this man's aura was calm and comforting. Vandhir looked at the warrior with the tiniest bit of annoyance that always seemed to come up whenever he was in his presence. He decided to greet his old friend. Greetings, Lone Warrior. Lone Warrior was confused. He was not supposed to be alive, having died in battle after losing his black mist powers. He was still coming to his senses when he heard a Voice call out. Greetings, lone warrior. His head snapped to the side, spotting his oldest rival and friend standing at one end of the room with a blond man. He spoke a greeting in return. Greetings, Vanheer. Perhaps you can explain why I am alive instead of being dead right now. Vanheer stared at him and then turned around, motioning to follow him. As lone warrior followed him, he took a quick glance at the blonde. He was tall, almost reaching up to Vanheer's height and was very similarly to him. His hair was a mess, with two bangs framing the side of his face. Deciding to ask later, he followed them out onto one of the training grounds. Vanheer stopped and turned around. He was staring at his friend whom he had brought back from the dead. A lot of emotions were running through his head, the foremost them being anger. Anger because he had died before him. Anger because he had left him alone in the world. Anger at himself for not being there to save him. Lone warrior stared at Vanheer for a long moment. He finally spoke. Why have you used that jutsu to bring me back from the dead, Vanheer? Vanheer replied, am in need of your skills in the way of the sword. Lone warrior raised a delicate eyebrow. Is it perhaps that you want me to teach that young man over there? Pointed over to Naruto, who was looking at both the men with wide eyes. Naruto finally snapped out of his stupor and comically pointed his finger at Vanheer. Okay. What did you just do back there? Who the hell is this guy? And how do you two know each other? Vanheer sighed with exasperation, something which caused lone warrior's eyebrows to shoot up. Vanheer only displayed that kind of behavior when he was fondly with him. This blonde was close to Vanheer, who simply said, let's end today's training here, Naruto. A lot is to be explained, after all. Flashback end. Vanheer had explained what had happened. He first explained the history those two shared, how he was a tyrant, how lone warrior was a rebel, how they fought, how he sealed away, how he was freed, how he was defeated again, how they became friends. At the end of the explanation, Naruto had asked the most obvious question, what was the jutsu that you used back there to resurrect lone warrior? The lone warrior ints Naruto he call him that, stating that his name was lost in the ages and besides, it sounded way cooler than Vanheer. The masked warrior looked like he wanted to kill his right there and then. Vanheer got himself back on track and started explaining. Flashback. Vanheer explained the ritual of resurrection that he had devised, just in case they needed to. I know you are wondering if it's similar to the reanimation jutsu Kreth Second Hokage, Vanheer said. Naruto blushed at being caught, but nodded nonetheless. Lone warrior continued the explanation, even if you are, it does not matter. Vanheer is ruthlessly intelligent and he wanted to avoid meeting the Shinigami coasts. So, he devised this jutsu which did not require any sacrifice to the death god. Instead it relied on the blood of the one who is performing the ritual. Naruto was looking at Vanheer with awe in his eyes. Naruto did not notice it, but lone warrior did, his friend's chest filled out just by a bit. Great. His already huge ego being boosted by this kid, lone warrior thought with a sigh. Vanheer explained why he could not train the kid in sword fighting. Lone warrior understood completely. When it came to swordsmanship, Vanheer was unsurpassed, but style was not something which could be taught. After thinking for a while, lone warrior spoke up, first we need to find out what type of sword he's comfortable with. Vanheer nodded and summoned his sword from somewhere. Naruto spoke up, how do you do that? Summoning a sword from nowhere. Vanheer chuckled, an explanation for later. With that he tossed his sword to Naruto. Naruto handled the sword and gave it a few swings. He tossed the sword back to Vanheer shaking his head, it's a bit off balance for me. Lone warrior then tossed his sword to Naruto, who did the same with the sword. He shook his head, too long for me. Vanheer deduced, seems that you are suited to traditional katana. He then led Naruto to his weapons vault and pulled out a standard katana. Tossing it to him, he said, have fun. Flashback end. Naruto had to admit, the lone warrior was just as strict as Vanheer. But he learned loads from that guy. His kenjutsu was graceful, attacking the enemy with deadly strike looked very similar to dancing. His speed and the strength at which he attacked were dwarfed by Vanheer's, but nonetheless, he could give him a run for his money. Naruto found the style somewhat limiting his unpredictability. He then decided to add his strength as well as some of Vanheer's style's more exaggerated nature to his, resulting in a new style that was very effective. Lone Warrior commented that if his strength and speed were anywhere near Vanheir's caliber, he could give him a decent. He also taught Naruto how to make energy waves with his sword. After 4 months of hard work, Lone Warrior announced that the time to test his kenjutsu had arrived. He remembered the fight. Flashback: the Lone Warrior and Naruto stood facing each other, their swords at the ready. Naruto knew that if he wanted to have a chance of even surviving, he would have to give all. The Lone Warrior, on the other hand, had suppressed his power so that it was only a little above Naruto's. It was a test of skills after all, not power. That, and he did not completely humiliate the boy he had grown so fond of. A stray leaf floated down between them. As soon as it made contact with the ground, the master and the student vanished. Clangs of metal surround the area, shockwaves generating. Neither gave an inch of opening away. Naruto decided it was enough, and in a maneuver that made Vanheir smirk, forced his teacher onto one spot. The Lone Warrior was himself surprised at it, though he hid quickly. They started moving again, this time on a level that a ninja can at least catch a glimpse. Naruto's style was effectively countering each of Lone Warrior's attacks. At one point Lone Warrior was forced to back up to avoid a particularly vicious strike. He then swept sword right, left and up, building sufficient energy, and brought it down. The energy wave released would have decimated Naruto had he not released his own wave. This continued for almost 5 hours, after which Naruto finally started showing signs of fatigue. Lone Warrior was surprised that Naruto could last that long without getting tired. Naruto, on the other hand, was getting frustrated. 5 hours had passed, and he had not landed a single cut on his teacher while he himself sported several light cuts all over body. Suddenly an idea came to him. It would be risky, but it had a chance of successfully working. Quickly putting some distance between them, he gathered his chakra, released it in a huge energy wave. Immediately after releasing the wave, he sped to his teacher's back, releasing another wave. He repeated this one more time until Lone Warrior had energy waves coming from 3 directions. Lone Warrior had to give Naruto credit. Thinking up a strategy like that in the middle of battle was very impressive. But Naruto was now speeding towards his back. If he beat the waves, Naruto would get in an attack. If he blocked Naruto, the waves would injure him. He countered the waves as Naruto predicted, but what Naruto failed to take in account was Lone Warrior could teleport like Vanheir. The next thing he knew, a sword was at his neck from behind. Yield, his teacher said. Naruto smirked before saying, "I believe it's a draw, sensei." Lone Warrior frowned, before feeling the touch of a kunai on his stomach. He frowned. "I said it was a kenj. Only match, Naruto." Naruto evenly replied, "Since when do shinobis fight fair, sensei? Besides, in a real battle, honor is always discarded." Lone Warrior chuckled, removing his sword as Naruto removed his kunai. The Lone Warrior turned to his friend, "I hereby declare Naruto, pass with flying colors." Naruto barely kept himself from shouting out in delight. Given Lone Warrior's experience in battle, he knew he was severely outclassed. Giving his best while using his unpredictability was what made him trick his teacher into a fatal position. Lone Warrior then turned to Vanheir. "Vanheir, it is time. He has proved himself worthy of that sword." Vanheir nodded and disappeared, only to appear a sec later with a beautiful sheathed sword. The sheath was black with a dragon engraving. Vanheir started speaking. "Naruto Uzumaki, you have proved your skills worthy enough so I can give this sword to you." He handed the sword to Na with both hands, who accepted with both of his hands. He pulled the katana out of its sheath and gasped. It was an absolutely beautiful katana. It had a square hilt guard, with black wrappings on the handle, with small red diamonds on 2 sides, running down. The blade had engraving of a dragon on its side as well. "This sword is of my own creation, back when I was still a tyrant ruler. I created it to help project my power in the destructive way possible. Its name is the God Slayer. In your hands, it may find a better use." Naruto bowed to the 2 warriors. "I humbly thank you, Vanheir sensei, for entrusting me with this sword." Lone Warrior sensei, 4 rounds, Vanheir began to say, "The reason I took you as my student Naruto, is because I wanted to have a legacy. I wanted Tomi mark on this world before passing on." They stopped underneath a tree. But I can't marry a woman now as my time is approaching quickly. I only have another 2 years left, he finished with a touch sadness. Naruto was confused as to where his teacher was going with all this emotional talk. Vandir didn't seem to notice his confusion as he continued to speak. That is why I wanted to ask a favor of you. It's okay if you don't accept. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. His teacher was behaving completely different. What is the point that you are trying to make, sensei? Vandir dropped the bomb on him. I want to make you my family by blood adopting you. Naruto's eyes almost popped out of his sockets after hearing him. His brain almost shut down from the bomb that dropped on it. Vandir noticed this and was afraid of rejecting. He had started to see Naruto as his son the more he spent time with him. That's why he wanted Naruto to be his legacy. He found him worthy of being his legacy. Wielding his power. I'll let you think about it. No more training until then, he faintly heard Vandir's voice as he walked away. His feet were on autopilot, carrying him to his room. Down heavily on his bed. Vandir's offer had come so out of the blue that it had taken him completely by surprise. I don't find it that shocking, you know, Kurama said once Naruto was asleep and in his mindscape. Naruto turned to him in confusion. Why? He literally said that he wants to make me a part of his family. He sat down on the grass. Over the recent months he had decided. He did not want his mind to remain in the gutter, literally. So, he changed it to imitate a forest situated on top of a mountain. Naruto continued, that's all I've ever wanted in my life, for someone to consider me a part of their family. Now that I'm being offered the opportunity, why am I hesitating? Take it, he cried out in frustration. Kurama slowly spoke, I may have an explanation for that, but I don't know if it will satisfy you or not. Naruto turned back to Kurama, what explanation? Tell me. Kurama elaborated, in your early years, you have been alienated. You had longed for someone who was related to you by blood to take care of you. Now, why? Sensei is offering to make you a part of his family by blood, but the reason you may be hesitating is that you are afraid to lose the blood ties that you have. Your mother and your father. Naruto thought hard on this, slowly realizing that Kurama was right. He was afraid that if he took Vandir's offer, his blood ties to his parents would be severed. Now that doubts were cleared, he would talk to him once he woke up. The next morning Vandir was doing his daily meditation, he sensed Naruto coming towards him. For some reason unknown to him, his heartbeat sped up and anxiety gathered in his mind. He pushed it back and stood up to greet his student. Good morning, Naruto. I presume that you had a good rest, he inquired. Naruto nodded his head and said, I've also thought about your proposition, sensei. And what have you decided? For the first time in centuries, he was sweating inside his mask. I accept your offer to become a part of your family, sensei, he spoke with determination. What is the reason that made you accept my offer? Vandir needed to know this. He did not want his legacy to become power-hungry. I talked with Kurama last night. He explained to me why I was so afraid of accepting your offer. All my life I've been alone and have yearned for a family. But when you asked me to become a part of your family, there was a doubt in my mind that by doing so, I would lose my blood ties to my parents. But Kurama explained that no matter what, Uzumaki Kushina and Namikaze Minato would always be my parents. I will also have more than enough power to protect my loved ones. By becoming your family, you and always have a living blood relative, Naruto finished with a heartwarming smile. Vandir's heart was aching with happiness and relief by the time Naruto finished explaining. He had chosen a worthy successor to become his legacy. Flashback end. After a good night's rest, Naruto continued his journey towards Konoha. After walking for some time, he began to think how everyone would take to his return. As he began thinking, he sensed 9 chakra signatures closing on him, fast. Bandits, he thought. He was right, and after a few seconds, he was surrounded by 9 bandits. One of them stepped forward, obviously the leader, and declared, hand over all your belongings and we'll let you go free. Naruto decided to play with them for a while. He spread his arms out and asked them, what makes you think I have anything with me? It was true. At the first glance, except his clothes could be seen, but if anyone looked closely, there were various storage seals inside his trench coat. the bandit leader scowled and motioned one of his men to check the guy out. It was then that Naruto decided that playtime was over, and vanished from his spot, back less than a second later. All the bandits then fell forward, their necks broken. Naruto scoffed and simply continued on his way. He thought back to the ritual that made him Vanheir's legacy and what happened after. Flashback: they were in Naruto's room, with Naruto sitting on a chair and Vanheir drawing various complicated seals on him. Naruto asked him, "What are the seals for again?" Vanheir replied, "They are to ensure that the ritual goes smoothly and that your body accepts my blood and chakra. They will also ensure that your body adjusts to the amount of power and abilities that my chakra and blood will be granting to you." Naruto nodded and said, "Let's do this." Vanheir nodded and pulled out a ceremonial dagger, cutting his palm and spilling blood. He dripped exactly 7 drops into a bowl with some potion that Naruto didn't know. Vanheir then reached out and deftly tore 3 of Naruto's hairs, making the boy yelp in pain. He then dropped the hairs in the bowl, both of them watching as the liquid into dark blue. The potion was complete. Vanheir had already discussed with Naruto the effects of the potion. He would still be his parents' son by blood, only after drinking the potion Vanheir's blood will also his veins. Very minute facial changes will occur, and his body may or may not grow, depending on whether his body can handle Vanheir's power without changing. Kurama had retreated into the deepest part of Naruto's mind. Although the potion will not affect Naruto's mind and personality, Kurama was not taking any chances on whether potion will affect him. Naruto gingerly drank the potion and was surprised that it tasted faintly of mint and orange. After finishing the bowl, Vanheir made him lie down on his bed and tapped a pressure point on his neck, knocking him unconscious and sparing him from any pain he might experience. Naruto was out for the next 5 days, with Vanheir regularly monitoring him. On the 5th day, Vanheir made a final assessment and was pleased with what he found. Naruto had grown 2 inches taller and his muscle tone had gotten sharper. He wasn't bulky, but wasn't skinny either. All the muscles had experienced an increase in their giving him superhuman durability. His face had changed minutely, giving Naruto a more defined jawline. Vanheir pulled up his eyelids and saw that his eye color had changed from sky blue to a darker shade of blue. He then put 2 fingers in Naruto's forehead and concentrated. What he found made him smile. Naruto's potential had dramatically increased, so much that Vanheir had no doubt that with a little more Naruto would easily surpass him. There was one more change he hoping for, but only Naruto himself could confirm it. 4 hours after Vanheir left the room, Naruto opened his eyes slowly, blinking away the sleep. He woke up completely as the event of the ritual caught up to him. He immediately got up and rushed to the full-length mirror on the other end of the room, but almost crashed into the wall. Naruto frowned as he knew his raw speed was never this high. As he slowly walked in front of the mirror in just his underwear, his eyes bulged out at what they saw. His muscle tone had gotten so much sharp it looked like it had been carved out of stone. As he touched his abs and biceps, he grinned. They felt exactly like Vanheir Sanan. Those felt like he was hitting steel that didn't dent no matter what. His whisker marks had faded to an almost unnoticeable degree. He grinned. All that was left was with these changes in his body. He went to turn the knob of the bathroom door, the knob ripped off and came into his hand. He stared at it for a moment and then sighed. More control exercises, he thought. As he went for breakfast, he saw his sensei doing his daily meditation. Vanheir sensed Naruto coming and opened his eyes. "How do the changes feel?" he asked him, only to get a glum look in return. He raised an eyebrow. "What's the matter?" Naruto simply held up the doorknobs he had accidentally ripped off, and there were 5 of them. Vanheir stared at them for a moment, and for the first time since Naruto met the man, he chuckled. Naruto's eyes popped out and his jaw dropped on the ground. He pointed a finger at him and yelled out, "Who the hell are you? Your acting of my sensei is completely rubbish if you are trying to impersonate him." Vanheir stopped chuckling and looked at him, saying, "Don't worry. You will have to train with me to control that strength and various other abilities that you have. But I need you to confirm something for me." Vanheir described a situation that would have been impossible for the old Naruto to escape, but training with Vanheir, who also taught him strategies and how to think. Trapped in such a situation, made Naruto easily capable to solve such situation. Naruto thought for a second and then gave an elaborate counter-strategy that would effectively solve the situation. Naruto then paused and then promptly freaked out. Grabbing his head with both hands he yelled out, "How did I solve it that quickly?" Vanir calmed him down saying, "Your brain's processing speed has dramatically increased, allowing you to think with more clarity. In short, you bumped few IQ points." Naruto stared at him for a second and then mused, "That makes sense." Vanir then declared while cracking his fists, "Now it will be fun to train." Naruto could only hope he didn't die after this. Flashback end. After his transformation, Vanir had explained what abilities came with his blood. Superhuman physical characteristics, energy projection, teleportation, flight, element manipulation. Naruto was simply dumbfounded. If Konoha, hell if any village knew that Vanir had multiple bloodline limits they would never rest until they had that power on their side. Superhuman physical characteristics that were granted to him were superhuman strength to casually punch and destroy a building. He enjoyed seeing bruises on Vanir's body whenever they sparred. Vanir said it was very sadistic of him. Superhuman speed that allowed him to move at speeds that would make even the strongest Jonin impossible to spot him. He had a field day training this ability. Superhuman stamina that allowed him to exert himself for very long time. Their spars stretched over almost 12 hours, and even then they were only lightly panting. Superhuman durability that made him very hard to damage. He could take Vanir's strongest hits and return even stronger ones. His intelligence had also increased to a point that he could grasp concepts even faster than before. He had become a seal master in record 6 months. Energy projection meant he could project large amounts of chakra to defend or attack. Due to inheriting Vanir's monstrous reserves of power, he could keep it up for a time before getting fatigue. Teleportation and flight were the abilities that he had most fun with. Flying was awesome, but he would keep this a secret and to be used in the most extreme case of aim. Teleportation, with and without seal, was what made him realize that he had surpassed his father in the very skill he was known for. Elemental manipulation meant he had natural affinities for every element and could perform all elemental jutsus of all affinities without hand seals and with minimal drain o. Reserves, not that he would feel it now. He stopped walking and sat down to think. A lot had happened in the last few days and he still hadn't come to terms with it. He remembered their last fight and how Van had finally rested, never to open his eyes ever again. Flashback. The sight of the cratered ground, burnt grass, cut trees brought a sense of deja vu to Naruto, who was standing shirtless on one side of the ground, various cuts in Bruce's body and sword in hand. He was pleased to say his sensei in the same state as him. Vanir had experienced pain after a very long time. He had forgotten how an injury or the pain that follows it feels like, or even exhaustion. He was feeling like a proud that Naruto had managed to land these many hits on him, enough to make him feel pain. Even Lone Warrior was not able to make him exert that much. Over the next 2 years after performing the ritual, Naruto and Vanir had worked relentlessly on harnessing the full potential of his new abilities. This was his final test to beat Vanir. Naruto couldn't believe that his teacher was more tired than him. Their fight had been going on for over 26 hours and he had been tested on everything which included Teininjutsu, Kenjutsu, Fuinjutsu, battle strategies and improvisation and his own powers and abilities. The challenge was to beat Vanir without using the Nine Tails chakra mode, and so far Naruto was succeeding. I might actually win this, he thought. Naruto announced, "Let's end this fight with our final attack sensei. This fight has gone on long enough." Vanir agreed with him, "Indeed. Give me your strongest attack." With that he began charging a huge ball of chakra, mixed with lightning. Naruto began charging most powerful attack. Even his voice seemed to pulse with power and in case you all are wondering, it's not the Rasenshuriken. Ka. Me. Ha. Me. He chanted as he began charging an energy ball in both his hands, held at a side. It was his own chakra mixed with sage chakra in such a way that released, it would be in the form of a beam. Ha! He released the beam towards Vanir, who released his own attack. They clashed with a bang and for a while it looked like Vanir would win as his attack crawled towards Naruto. But Naruto furiously thought, I've not come this far to lose, damn it. Ha! He released a truly incredible roar and put all his power into the beam which pushed back Vanheir's attack. Both the attacks rushed Tawa. Vanheir who couldn't stop them and was engulfed by them. Naruto then fell back, utterly exhausted. He somehow found the energy to sit up after a while and saw, for the first time since he started training with Vanheir, that his Sei was unconscious. I am proud of you, Naruto. Your parents would be too, Kurama's voice spoke in his mind. Naruto smiled and got up. He walked up to Vanheir's form and picked high, and took him to his room, laying him down gently. He smiled and walked to his own room, where he promptly fell face first on his bed, out like a light. He woke up after the best sleep he had in years and walked down to the main hall, again for the first time, before his sensei. He chuckled and a thought struck to him. He decided to imitate Vanheir and he sat down on his teacher's spot to meditate. He focused himself to listen to the peaceful nature. The chirping of birds, the soft swirling of water made him completely relax. He sensed his sensei and had to sua smirk as he stopped behind him. Vanheir woke up, remembering that he fell unconscious, losing against Naruto. The student had truly surpassed the teacher. Vanheir couldn't remember the last time H tasted defeat. It felt somewhat refreshing. I'll finally be released from my curse now, he thought with relief and happiness. He got up and found himself in his room surprisingly. So, Naruto carried me up H. He chuckled at the thought. He got up and finished his morning necessities and walked down to his daily spot to meditate. He was not prepared to see Naruto meditating not only in his spot, but looking completely relaxed. For so long Vanheir had tried his hardest to relax but could not because the curse he was under. Before he could say anything, Naruto spoke, "Hope you had a good rest, sensei." He stood up with the same grace Vanheir always did. Vanheir chuckled and said, "Come on, we have something to talk about and give it to you before I officially end your training and send you back on your W. But let's have some breakfast first." After breakfast they sat in the gardens, facing each other. Vanheir pulled out a scroll, or more specifically, a summoning scroll. "I assume you know what this is." Naruto shook his head. "I know it's a summoning scroll, but unfortunately I can't sign it as I've already signed the Toad contract." Vanheir raised an eyebrow. "The Toad contract, huh? Well, you can sign this contract as well. Usually ninjas only sign one contract. You can sign two contra. But it's heavily frowned upon. Summon the Chief Toad. I am not letting my legacy not sign my contract," he finished in a no-nonsense tone. Naruto nodded and bit his thumb, did the hand seals and slammed his hand against the ground, whispering, "Kuchio's no jutsu." A large puff of smoke later, he was standing on top of Gamabunta, boss of all toads. The large summon bellowed, "Oi Gaki! Where have you summoned me?" It was then he noticed Vanheir standing in front of him. Eyes widening, he immediately bowed, "Forgive me for not noticing you, Lord Vanheir." Vanheir waved his hand, "It's okay, but I had Naruto summon you for an important matter." "And what would that be?" Vanheir bluntly said, "I want him to sign the dragon contract." Naruto's eyes widened. Though Gamabunta wasn't far behind, but he has already signed our contract, Lord Vanheir. Vanheir raised his eyebrow behind his mask. "So? My summons are way more powerful than any of you lot. Naruto has already mastered sage training. By this contract, his sage mode will be way more powerful than before." Gamabunta did not know how to answer this. On one hand it would mean losing the last Toad Sage alive and by extension, the last link to Minato and Jiraiya. On the other hand, since dragons are the most powerful summons, he would be safe and last longer in battle than any of them. He was stuck between the two choices. Naruto did not want to lose his last link with his father and godfather either, so he made a decision. Jumping down to face the Chief Toad, he said, "Don't worry Gamabunta. Won't forget about you guys. We can still have drink sessions." Gamabunta valued many things in his life. Some of them were his sons, Naruto and Sake. Listening to Naruto making an offer about having drink sessions with him convinced him. "Alright, you have my approval Naruto. I'm looking forward to those sessions." With that he disappeared. Vanheir spread the contract open before him. As Naruto cut his thumb, he saw that only Vanheir had signed the contract before him. Must be most secretive and powerful contract for only sensei to have signed it, he thought. As he finished, he felt a slight burning on the underside of his forearm. He saw that a dragon tattoo had formed. It was a dragon which had a long slender body wrapping his forearm 2 times with wings spread out. It ended with the dragon's head on the underside of his wrist. He knew what to do. He cut his thumb and smeared the blood on the tattoo, gathered chakra and slammed his hand on the ground, Kuchio's no jutsu. A large puff of smoke appeared, 5 times greater than what Gamabunta ever could do, and the creature that appeared could only be described as mythical and legendary. The dragon stood over 200 feet tall, easily towering over Gamabunta's height. Its scales were bluish-black and had wings equal to that of the length of its body and had a spitail. Just imagine a dragon like that, it's hard to describe. It was Abraxas, the boss of all dragons. It has been a long time since you have summoned me, Vanheir. Vanheir corrected him, my student summoned you, not me. Abraxas's face turned into a snarl and he growled, have you determined him worthy of summoning us? I have. Naruto showed no fear, but on the inside even Kurama had retreated into the deep parts of Naruto's mind. Abraxas leaned into Naruto's face, testing him and sensing his P. Naruto showed no trace of fear and remained calm as Abraxas studied him. He retreated back and spoke directly to Vanheir, I never thought it would be possible, foe. Being who is more powerful than you to exist, Vanheir. Vanheir proudly replied, I trained him, Abraxas. He is also my legacy. Abraxas's eyes widened before looking at Naruto, who stared back at him. Abraxas chuckled, already liking the blonde, alright. Anyone who is more powerful than Vanheir has full rights to sign this contract. Looking forward to working with you, Naruto. He disappeared in smoke after that. Vanheir then began his explanation, now that that's over with, I wanted to tell you something. Long time ago, when I was still a tyrant, I desired nothing power. I sought to create an empire that would last forever. Many people stood in my way, but I crushed them all. I ruled the world for many decades. Sage of 6 Paths finally challenged me. Our battle shook the world, and in the end I was defeated. He placed this seal on me, he turned around and took off coat to show an incredibly complex seal. He cursed me with immortality, the word came out of his mouth like it was a curse, he said that since I don't care for anyone but myself, I will be forced to alone for the rest of eternity, secluded. Since I lost, I had no choice but to obey him. He turned back to Naruto, who had a tear going down his face at what his teacher was cursed to endure. Naruto asked in a whisper, why are you telling me all of this? Sen Vanheir continued, he said that only a relative of my blood will be able to free me of my curse. He looked straight into Naruto's eyes as he said this, The second reason why I made you my blood relative. I was selfish. Naruto was surprisingly understanding when he heard Vanheir's explanation. After all, even after hearing his selfish reason, Naruto felt it was justified. Vanheir had him the strongest and the most powerful warrior in the world, after all. Vanheir, seeing the silence from his student, took it as a good sign and did something that absolutely shocked and surprised Naruto. He took off his mask. Naruto watched with wide eyes as his teacher took off his mask, revealing the face of the most handsome man he had ever seen. He had long hair that reached down to me and an extremely angular face with the most beautiful dark blue eyes, identical to his own. He blushed at seeing the man's smile aimed at him. Vanheir chuckled. Everyone who had ever seen his face had the same reaction. Am I that handsome? He teased Naruto. Naruto blushed harder as Vanheir broke out into straight-out laughter. Vanheir ceased his laughter, but kept the smile on his face. Naruto, I want to ask a favor of. Think of it as payment for the training I provided you. Naruto instantly agreed, what is it? Whatever it is, I will do it. He said with absolute resolve. Vanheir kept the smile on his face as he said, please remove the seal F. My body. Naruto felt like the entire world had crashed upon him. The man who he had just begun to see as his father figure had just asked him to kill him. It felt like when he had Jiraiya, only this time, he would be the one to give the death blow. Vanheir noticed the hesitation and the pain on Naruto's face and felt like shit for doing this to him. Naruto, he called, making the young man look up with tears in his. You are the son I never had. Watching you grow into a powerful warrior made me feel like a successful gardener, you know. Seeing Naruto's confused face, he elaborated, You grew like a blooming flower which was given the utmost care by the gardener as if it were his pride and joy. Made me feel like a proud father, and I'm proud to call you my legacy, son. Naruto couldn't hold it anymore and hugged Vanheir tightly, which Vanheir returned with equal force and affection. Naruto cried, tears streaming down his face, why? Why must everyone I hold dear be taken away from me? Why? He buried his face into Vanheir's shoulder. Vanheir calmed him down, you will find important people for yourself, Naruto. I firmly believe in that. But sometimes, you have to let people go. Besides, hearing the truth, you will only feel guilty keeping me alive, knowing I am in pain. Naruto sobbed harder, knowing that Vanheir had spoken the truth. He forced himself to calm down and detached himself from Vanheir. Vanheir himself had tears running down his face. The only legacy he had, and he was forced to say goodbye to him after spending only 4 years with him. Naruto moved, facing Vanheir's back. In just one glance, he knew what he had to do. Tears streaming down his face, he placed his hand on the seal and pushed some ch into it. The seal shone brightly and then disappeared, successfully deactivated. Vanheir instantly began fading away, starting from legs. He smiled and pointed his right index fin. Naruto's heart, I will always be with you, my son. His hand faded away. Naruto took one last glance at the smiling face before it faded away completely. Vanheir Lord had taken his leave from the world. Flashback end. Naruto sighed sadly. There was nothing he could do about the past except accepting it and moving on. He got up and decided to speed up his journey. Sensing no one Aru grinned and performed a transformation jutsu. He now looked like a normal traveler. He had a bag, a white cape torn at the ends and a straw hat. He smirked and disappeared in a flash. Appearing a mile away from the gates, he began leisurely walking towards them. Azumo's day was going as usual, which is to say, very boring. He and Kotetsu had just woken up from another one of their naps. Doing absolutely nothing, he glanced at gates absent-mindedly, only to find a traveler making his way towards them. He stopped in front of their desks. Azumo thought there was something suspicious about this guy. No traveler had such a confident posture while entering a foreign village. He asked him, business? The traveler replied, important information for Hokage-sama. Azumo wrote him a pass, enjoy your stay in our village. He then signaled the Anbu, take him to meet Hokage-sama. The Anbu nodded and escorted the traveler away. Azumo nudged Kotetsu, there's something familiar about that guy. Kotetsu nodded, so you felt it as Tsunade was as usual, buried in mountains of paperwork. It never seemed to end, and on top of that, Shizune had found her secret stash of sake and threatened that if she not complete her paperwork, no sake for her. If she wasn't my apprentice I would have. Her thoughts were interrupted as an Anbu came through the door, escorting a traveler. This traveler claims to have important information that he wishes to share with you, Hokage-sama, he said. Tsunade nodded and motioned the Anbu to return to his post. He bowed and vanished in a shunshin. Tsunade leant back on her chair, what information do you have for M? Naruto decided to have a little fun with her and promptly replied, the news I have is about Uzumaki Naruto. Tsunade straightened up instantly, everything forgotten as soon as she heard Uzumaki being spoken. The Anbu in the room had stiffened up as well. Tsunade made the hand seals for absolute privacy. As soon as the Anbu left she stood up, banging her hands on the table, what information? Tell me. Naruto smiled at how much she cared for him. He replied, I have information on his current whereabouts and his health. Tsunade had jumped over the table and grabbed the shoulders of the traveler, how and where is he? She half shouted. The traveler replied, he is currently fine, and as for his whereabouts, he dropped the henge. Tsunade's eyes watered up as she gazed into the familiar but different blue eyes looking down at her with love, it's been a long time, Ba-chan. She lunged at him, wrapping her arms around him and burying her head into his chest, crying with happiness. Naruto was equally happy to see her, his own tears falling ground. She held him for a long time, like a mother embracing her son who had returned after a very long time. Tsunade got a good look at him when they finally separated. He was over 6 feet 3 inches tall, with a body that only gods could possess. He was wearing a sleeveless black muse. shirt with a blue sweatshirt underneath that was full sleeves. On top of that, he had taped his forearms with black tape in a fingerless glove fashion. He wore dark blue Anbu trousers with various pockets, with white tape at the bottom with steel-toed stealth shoes, black body with white sole. His hair had grown with TW bangs framing both the sides of his face. His whiskers had faded away. A leaf headband was tied around his forehead. His eyes were what baffled Tsunade. They had Changa darker shade of blue, and they shone with power. He wore a cloak similar to the fourth Hokage, but it was black with red flames licking its bottom. All in all, he looked like his father's clone, only much more powerful. Tsunade gasped, taking in his new appearance. His form seemed to command power. Naruto smirked as he saw that Tsunade noticed the changes. She stuttered out, "WW wow. You have certainly grown powerful, Naruto." Naruto replied, chuckling, "Indeed I have, Ba-chan. And you are still the Hokage after all these years?" Tsunade replied with a wide grin, "Of course. After you departed I promised myself that I would save this hat for you. Only you will become Rokudaime Hokage and no one." Naruto was touched by her love and devotion for him. He then asked her, "So now that I have returned, can I go and meet my friends? We can do the skill evaluation tomorrow." Tsunade nodded, "No problem. Go have fun." She looked at the paperwork on her desk, which had somehow grown again. "I can't until I do this paperwork," she finished morosely. Naruto grinned and asked, "Why don't you use the shadow clones?" Tsunade simply stared at him for a full minute, before hugging him again. She then began laughing like a maniac. She immediately created 10 shadow clones and ordered to get started. Naruto grinned, "Well, see ya later," and vanished in a flash. Tsunade couldn't keep the shock off her face. Did he just teleported? Naruto walked around the village, with gasps and murmurs following him everywhere. Is that Naruto? How is it possible? No way. Naruto has returned. He looks exact his father, were the murmurs. He grinned and in a show of speed, vanished so fast that people wondered what just happened. He appeared 2 seconds later on his favorite place, the head of his father on the Hokage mountain. He stared at the view of his village with a smile on his face. He was no prepared to protect his home. The Rookie 9 were lounging the Barbie K restaurant, chatting about old times. All of them were there, except Sakura and Sasuke. They were hated for the way they blatantly spit upon Naruto's memory and acted as if they were better than him. All of them were taken aback when Tsunade told them that Naruto had left on a training trip. All of them were a bit disappointed that Naruto didn't tell them personally, who understood that he didn't want Sasuke or Sakura to know. They were eagerly waiting for the blonde's return for the past 4 years, not knowing that he was back. They were merrily eating, discussing Naruto's exploits and prank she played on the whole village. And there was that time when he turned the ANBU's uniform pink for a whole 3 days and no one could figure out how to reverse it. Kiba laughed, as did Choji. Shikamaru, while Neji and Tenten chuckled along with Hinata. Ino was also laughing along with Sai while Shino was silently staring with a barely noticeable smirk on his FA. Was almost shouting, Naruto-kun's flames of youth burnt brightly when he was young and they still do. They were about to order for more when they overheard one of the customers, "He is back and have you seen him? He looks the spitting image of the Yondaime." Nobody had to have Shikamaru's brains to realize who they were talking about. For a moment nobody moved, and then there was a mad rush of people, hurrying to get OU there to find their blonde friend. Tsunade was dozing off while her clones finished the paperwork. She had to thank Naruto for the secret of doing paperwork. Her sleep was disturbed by the loud bang by W. Her door to her office opened with shouts of, "Is he really back? Where is he?" Tsunade just grumbled. She couldn't fault them for yelling as she had done the same. "Calm down, people. He has gone to the place where he feels at peace. Now get out and let me sleep." She pushed them out of the door. Shikamaru quickly figured it out, the Hokage mountain. Everyone rushed out again, leaving Tsunade in peace. Naruto sensed a number of chakra signatures rushing towards him and he smiled, knowing they would be his friends. He stood up as all of them stopped behind him. "It's been a long time, you guys," he greeted. He then turned around, which caused most of them to adopt shocked looks at his new appearance. Shikamaru was the first recover with his trademark phrase, "troublesome." That broke the ice as everyone rushed to hug him except Shikamaru, Sai and Shino. Now that Naruto was the strongest in the world in terms of physical strength, he didn't budge as everyone slammed into him, hugging him to death. Naruto was laughing. Stop it, you guys. You're going to crush me to death. Everyone disengaged from him and got a good look at him and were stunned at how much the resemblance between him and the Yondaimian become. He looked like Hai. The girls had massive blushes on their faces. Tenten's face was fully red with blood dripping out of her nose and Hinata looked to be on the verge of fainting. Ino, even though she was dating Sai, was shamelessly undressing him with her eyes, with drool coming out of her mouth. The old Naruto would have been extremely uncomfortable at the girls' looks, but all he did was smirk and winked at them. The reactions were hilarious. Tenten's nose erupted in a fountain of blood, Hinata fainted and Ino fainted as well. The guys were sporting amused looks but Kiba was jealous that Naruto could inspire Su. Reaction from the girls while he couldn't. He had no room to speak though. The Yondaime was also quite handsome and Naruto naturally inherited the good looks of his fat. He also had a feeling that his position as the pack leader was being challenged. He could not help but feel the power off Naruto, and it was enormous. Naruto simply laughed. It seemed it was his turn to be hoarded by fangirls. He woke them up and they sat down in a circle as Naruto told them everything that happened in last 4 years, from training under the most powerful man on earth to becoming the legacy of the said man. That garnered shocked expressions. So, since you defeated Vanir Lord, you're now the most powerful person in the world? Asked a skeptical Kiba. Naruto looked at him and waved a hand at him. Kiba was suddenly lifted into the air by some unknown force while everyone tried to pull him down. Kiba was terrified when he suddenly got lifted into the air with one simple gesture of Naruto's hand. He shouted, "Okay. Okay. I believe you." Naruto slowly put him back down. Naruto's telekinesis was a very handy thing. It was to be his hidden card but he decided that it wouldn't hurt to show them. After he put Kiba down, silence ensued that was broken. After a long moment by Shikamaru. Naruto, was that a bloodline limit that you got from Vanir Lord? His friend nodded, it's one of them. Everyone was sweating bullets by now. Neji asked another question, how many bloodline limits do you have currently? Naruto replied with a grin, 6. A silence again ensued that was broken by a pale Shikamaru. Naruto, you know what would happen once the council gets this news right. Naruto knew exactly what would happen. While he was acknowledged by all the shinobis and majority of the civilians, the council was made up of people who hated his very existence. They would kill him after they get a hold of his blood to breed warriors for the village. In his dreams, Naruto shrugged, I know. I also know that whatever they try is gonna fail spectacularly. I was trained by the most powerful being in the world, I'm gonna prove it to them. They shakily nodded and looked that it was evening already. Everyone stood up to get back to their duties. Naruto asked Shikamaru, hey, do you know where Kakashi-sensei is in the village? Shikamaru replied, he might be with the other Jonins. Look at the training grounds. He realized Naruto was pulling his leg. You can sense them, can't you? Naruto just grinned, man, it's difficult to fool you, Shika. So long. He then vanished from the spot, leaving Shikamaru to mutter, troublesome, and walk away. Naruto reappeared in the Hokage office, where Tsunade was dozing off, her clones doing the paperwork. His silent arrival wasn't unnoticed thought. Shizune yelped as he suddenly appeared beside her. Naruto-kun. She noticed his changes and blushed as they were standing quite close. She stepped back as he greeted her, hey Shizune-chan. How are you these days? His loud voice caused Tsunade to wake up and grumble about loud brats. Naruto smirked but stopped when she saw her eyes narrow at him, alright Naruto, you are going. Exactly what happened on your training trip. Naruto sighed and for the second time, explained everything. Tsunade was silent at the end of his explanation. At last she spoke, so, now you are the legacy of the most powerful warrior in the world. He nodded, even stronger than him. She just sighed, did you know that you could have lost the link to your parents? Naruto replied heatedly, no, I wouldn't have as he and I both checked the seals 3 times to avoid anything catastrophic. Tsunade sighed again, you will cause me to get gray hairs even in my genjutsu. Naruto grinned triumphantly, aha. So you admit you are an old hag. Tsunade's mood did a full 180 and she let loose a super strength punch at Naruto. Even though she was now aware of her abilities, the fact that Naruto stopped it with index finger still caused a jaw-dropping reaction. Naruto smiled, "It won't work anymore, Ba-chan. Even if it had hit me, I would only have stumbled a little, that's all." Tsunade grinned at that. Another shinobi who can use super strength against which hers is almost negligible. She couldn't wait until Naruto put Sakura in her place. She took out a scroll. Giving it to him, she said, "It's what your parents left you. Everything you now own is in this scroll." He opened it and read the letters and wills of both his parents. Tears fell from his eyes as they expressed how much they loved him. He then read the wills and found out T was the heir, now clan head upon reaching his majority, of both the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans, along with becoming the owner of their vast fortunes. He thanked Tsunade, and sped through the village stopping at where the Namikaze estate is supposed to be. He senses a large amount of chakra in the air and realized was hidden with seals. Immediately he let loose a pulse of chakra along with some blood on the ground. After a few seconds, a large traditional 3-story Japanese home came into sight. It was in every way beautiful. As he walked to the house, he noticed the vast space arrow. Clearly his father was very rich. He cut his thumb and applied it on the seal on the front door. It opened and Naruto stepped in and was bewildered when he saw not one speck of dust anywhere, but then realized that everything was preserved with seals. They sure were obsessed with seals, he thought with a sweat drop. He gathered some chakra in his hands and slammed them on the ground, applying the counter seal that would make everything available to him. He didn't even bother go. His old apartment. That place can burn for all I care, he thought darkly. Only one thing left to do now. Here I come, Ichiraku Ramen. As he once again sped through the streets, he spotted everyone he had met earlier today, looking dirty but satisfied. He stopped in front of them, causing them to jump at sudden appearance. "Where are you guys going?" he asked them. "To the BBQ, for something to eat. We just came back from an A rank." Naruto offered, "Why don't we eat at Ichiraku Ramen? My treat." They looked at each other and nodded. Who were they to refuse a free meal? They then started walking towards the ramen stand, chatting happily when one voice caused all the happy mood to evaporate. "So, you're finally back, Dobi." All of them turned around with kunai in their hands, shielding Naruto from the sneering gaze of Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto, for one, was touched that they were willing to protest that much. However, it was his turn now that he had the power. He turned around to face his former friend with a smirk. "Yeah, I found my trip to be quite discovering and so took my time to get back." Sasuke grit his teeth as his attempt to irritate the blonde failed. He decided for a direct approach. "Fight me, Dobi." Naruto narrowed his eyes. "No." Sasuke asked. "Why not?" "Afraid I'll kick your ass." Naruto replied in a cold tone. "I am not going to fight you to satisfy your ego, Sasuke." Sasuke continued to goad him. "Have you turned into a coward, Dobi? Hiding behind your friends now?" Naruto gently motioned his friends to stand aside. They grudgingly agreed, seeing he was easily more powerful than all of them combined. He told the Uchiha, "I actually have them. I don't see even one with you." Sasuke didn't reply to the taunt. Instead he flew through hand seals and pronounced, "Fire release, Great Dragon Flame Jutsu." A large flame came out of his mouth, cover distance between him and Naruto in a second, apparently striking him. Sasuke was frozen in his position, with Shikamaru's shadow possession jutsu and weapons from everyone trained on him. But he had a smug grin on his face, which Wati wiped out when he saw everyone smirking. He demanded, "What are you weaklings smirking at? The fact that you missed me." At Naruto's voice behind him his eyes widened. No one could have dodged that at this distance. How did he do it? How have you gotten so fast, Dobi? Naruto then moved in front of him, his kunai still trained on Sasuke. His eyes were hard. Attacking a comrade is the treason of the highest order. "I should kill you where why stand, but I won't since the council will be on my ass for attacking you. I'm gonna do it at such a time when no one can oppose me for doing so." He then motioned for Shikamaru to release him. After that, they walked away, not sparing him one glance. Sasuke grit his teeth. "Just you wait, Naruto. I will kill you and P. everyone that I'm better than you. After a hearty reunion with the ramen stand owners, Naruto sat down to eat the dish he had missed the most. He ate a record of 57 bowls, courtesy of his now superhuman metabolism. Even Choji could not match it, and that was saying something. As he bid them farewell for the night, he chanced upon the person he had strong feelings for. The sister of his best friend, Sabaku no Tamari. Tamari was just taking an evening stroll. She wore a white battle kimono with a deep neck cut mostly covered by an anbu armor. She tied her hair in 2 ponytails, which still spiky at the end. She wore a purple skirt that reached to her knees and showed off her long, creamy legs. She was about to head back when she saw Naruto. A heavy blush adorned her face as he made his way to her. Tamari had always liked Naruto, and her feelings had only intensified when he had disappeared on a training trip, rushed at him and squeezed him into a very tight hug. Naruto greeted Tamari with a smile. "Hey Tamari-chan," was as far as he got when Tamari rushed at him and pulled him into a very tight hug. He was caught off guard, but squeezed back just as tightly as he whispered in her ear, "It's good to see you too, Tamari-chan." Tamari blushed at what he called her, but she didn't mind it one bit. She blushed harder as she felt muscles as hard as steel under her hands on his back. Naruto was enjoying Tamari's touch, however he had to stop her before he lost himself in the pleasure. He separated himself from her, much to her silent protests, and looked into the beautiful green eyes that he admired so much and asked in a gentle tone of voice, "Tamari-chan, are you? You are more beautiful than when I last saw you." Tamari smiled while blushing. "I am good, Naruto. And you seem to have changed as well, for the better in many ways," she said the last part to herself as her eyes roamed body. Naruto saw his chance, but could not keep the stutter out of his voice. "Tamari-chan, if you are not busy tomorrow, maybe we can have DDD dinner." Tamari was shocked as he asked her out on a date. Her mind almost shut down, but with an iron will, she willed herself to speak. Oh, of course, Naruto. We have much to up after all." Naruto grinned and was tempted to do a victory dance, but settled for a kiss on Tamari's cheek instead. She had frozen at the contact, but Naruto didn't notice, and a good night later, he was gone. Tamari had a soft blush and a smile on her face as she returned to her hotel room. Scoring a date with Naruto was the last thing she had expected, but she wasn't refusing. Slept with a smile on her face. As soon as the sun's rays hit him, Naruto woke up. He began his daily routine, had breakfast, did his meditation. Another good thing that came from Vanheir's blood was could maintain his body at peak condition only with 2 hours of meditation daily. He then saw the clock and smiled as he saw there were 15 minutes left to reach training ground 7. He then had a thought and had to suppress laughing maniacally. Was going to make a damn good entrance. The training ground was filled with many people. Naruto's friends, all the Jonin senseis, Chunins, ANBUs, Tsunade, and unfortunately, Sasuke and Sakura. Even though Naru told her of what he could do, Tsunade very curious to see it all in action. All of a sudden an enormous pressure was felt upon them, pushing many to the ground. Only Guy, Kakashi, some of the Anbu, Sasuke, Naruto's friends and Tsunade were standing, albeit barely. A bead of sweat was on their forehead. What the hell is this power and where is it coming from? Were everyone's thoughts. Suddenly it disappeared as if it was never there. Everyone was breathing heavily. So how was my little show? A familiar voice came from above them and all of them saw Naruto standing on one of the branches of one of the trees. That power came from you? Tsunade asked in disbelief. Naruto smirked and nodded. Everyone's jaws dropped and eyes widened. Sasuke was shaking in anger. How did you get so powerful, Naruto? I should be the one who has that kind of power, and Uchiha. Outward he spoke. There's no way a dobe like you can have that kind of power. I refuse to believe it. Naruto smirked. He had expected that reaction from Sasuke and couldn't wait to show off. He released a bit of his power again, creating the same pressure from before. On time, people fainted, not being able to withstand and remain conscious at the same time. Naruto lifted the pressure and asked with a smug undertone, convinced, Uchiha. Sasuke glared furiously. Where did you get this power? I should be the one to have it. You are not worthy of this power. Naruto narrowed his eyes and replied just as harshly, you are the one to talk. You have stolen so many jutsus with those eyes of yours. So many people's hard work, stole them in just a glance. You don't work hard, Uchiha, you just steal the hard work from others. He then clammed down and turned to Tsunade. Who is testing me? Tsunade receded her glare on Sasuke and turned to Naruto. Your first test is taijutsu. Guy will be testing you. Guy stepped forward and struck a nice guy pose. Naruto-kun. Let us fight in the flames of youth. Everyone's sweat dropped. Naruto, however, decided to pull a Kakashi. Huh, did you say something? Kakashi noticeably brightened up and even puffed up his chest in pride. Guy, on the other hand, broke into anime tears. You have such a hip and cool attitude, Nar. Kun. He would have gone on had Tsunade not smashed him into the ground. Will you stop being annoying for once? Naruto adopted a serious expression as he and Guy faced off. Tsunade declared, begin. None of them moved for a while. While Guy was in his Gakken stance, Naruto was simply standing without one. I'll make the first move then, he thought. What happened? Blew everyone's minds. Naruto vanished and appeared behind Guy in less than a second. Nobody, even Sasuke, who had his Sharingan turned on hoping to copy Naruto's could catch him. It was seriously impressive considering both the fighters were 100 feet apart. Naruto's punches came at such speeds that Guy was unable to defend himself from the onslaught. They smashed all over his upper body, and with a final punch, Naruto sent Guy through 7 trees before he stopped, embedded into the bark of the 8th. 2. Everyone was shocked would be the understatement of the century. Naruto vanished for a second time and reappeared, carrying an unconscious Guy in his arms. Kakashi W. Unable to speak coherently. Seeing how his student beat the most powerful taijutsu user in all the nations within 10 seconds. Even Tsunade was gawking at the ease at which Naruto defeated Guy. She didn't know Naruto had become that strong. Sasuke Uchiha was shaking in anger. The Dobi had gotten so fast that even the Sharingan couldn't catch him. Moreover, he knew that in a pure taijutsu match, he could hope to beat Rock Lee, and yet Naruto had beaten Mighty Guy, who was even more powerful than Rock Lee. Everyone else was gawking at the power display. It was now clear without a doubt that Naruto was the strongest taijutsu user in all the lands. Naruto turned to Tsunade. Can I do kenjutsu next? Tsunade snapped out from her trance and said, oh, never thought you used a blade. Naruto shrugged. Now I do. A random Jonin stepped forward. I specialize in kenjutsu, Uzumaki-san. Naruto smiled and said, what are you waiting for then? Let's dance. He then did another thing that had all of them gawking. He pulled a katana out of nowhere. Vandir had finally shown him how to do it. I won't be describing it again. Imagine the shock and awe on everyone's faces. As the fight started, everyone stared in awe at the unbreachable defense Naruto was showing. Naruto decided to switch to offense and suddenly, the Jonin was on defensive, trying to desperately defend the attacks that came at unimaginable speeds. The power Bahin. Every attack was so great he was sent skidding. Everyone seemed to be in a constant state of awe at the grace and skill that Naruto was displaying. Eventually, Naruto decided to end it and with 2 strokes, had the Joni. The ground, Naruto's katana pointed at him. Naruto asked in a tone that indicated he was bored, what's next? Tsunade replied, ninjutsu. Kakashi will be testing you on it. On hearing his name, Kakashi stepped forward and faced Naruto, who was smirking at him. Kakashi gave Naruto a glance and thought, he is so much like you, sensei. Pow. In every way. Tsunade declared, begin. Kakashi immediately flew through hand seals in a blur, fire release, great fireball jutsu. A large fireball flew towards Naruto at high speeds, who did nothing to stop it. What he did next convinced Tsunade and everyone else that they were going to die with the number of shocks they were experiencing today. Naruto had stretched out a ha and stopped the fireball in front of him. Kakashi himself felt his jaw drop. Today's day was simply getting filled with surprises and nothing less. Naruto closed his fist and the fireball dissipated. He nonchalantly not bad, Kakashi-sensei. Everyone felt a spike in chakra from Naruto and the next thing they saw a water dragon forming around him with just a few gestures. What everyone was surprised about. The jutsu was performed without hand seals. The huge water dragon rushed towards Kakashi, who made his own fire dragon. The 2 attacks cancelled each other out. Naruto made a fist in his right hand and threw it forward. A huge wave of fire came barreling towards Kakashi, who used the body flicker to get out of the way. Their fight continued like this for the next 20 minutes, Naruto using all the 5 elements with ease without hand seals and Kakashi either dodging or countering, mostly dodging. Naruto decided it was enough and created a mini tornado which Kakashi could not dodge. He was spun around and harshly thrown into a tree and lost consciousness. Everyone was gobsmacked at the level of power Naruto was showing, and it was clear to them that Naruto wasn't even trying. Sasuke Uchiha's anger and jealousy were soaring upwards with no sign of stopping. The Dobi was already more powerful than me, but now it's not even funny. He beat his own field and made it look like a joke, used a powerful sword with the grace of a master, and on top of that, beat Kakashi. He did every elemental jutsu without hands. The power behind them was astronomical. That power should be mine. Everyone stared at the defeated Kakashi and then Naruto, who simply standing in his place with his arms crossed, looking not the least bit tired. Tsunade was on the verge of a third heart attack. What Naruto had displayed she couldn't imagine in her wildest dreams. Kakashi was the foremost expert in ninjutsu with jutsus he had copied, and he was beaten like nothing. Snapping out of her state of shock, she had decided that testing him for genjutsu would be futile. Naruto had already her earlier that he had learned how to dispel all genjutsus, but still sucked at performing them. She had decided then and there. Naruto Uzumaki, after observing your performance in the tests, I hereby declare you as an elite Jonin of Konohagakure no Sato. Nobody could protest her statement as they had seen for themselves. Sasuke could take it no more. He attacked Naruto. He charged with his Rinnegan and Mangekyo Sharingan activated. Naruto inwardly scoffed, what a pathetic idiot. Sasuke had just given him the perfect reason to attack him. No one could protest as Sasuke had attacked him first and those corrupt civilians had nothing to pin on him. What followed next was the most brutal beating Sasuke ever had. Naruto still held back, even though he could kill him without any consequences. Every skill and ability he was put into use. Tsunade knew better than to stop him. As Sasuke had attacked Naruto, he had knowingly committed treason by attacking a fellow shinobi, and as such, Naruto had full right. Beat him up as long as he doesn't kill him. Sasuke was lying on the ground, conscious and experiencing the worst pain he had ever gone through. Naruto had slapped a seal on him in their fight that forced him to conscious. He couldn't even shout as he was too tired. To all other shinobi who were seeing this fight were seeing nothing other than two blurs clashing. As the fight became more brutal, they saw that Sasuke had put his all into fight, while Naruto still held back. Every punch, kick, slash and ninjutsu had devastating power behind them. All the bones in Sasuke's body were broken save for his back. Naruto stood above the Rinnegan user with an emotionless face. You, Sasuke Uchiha, are nothing more than a power-hungry fool. You would steal every ounce of power, giving any thought to the hard work that is put behind achieving the power. You think that just because you are an Uchiha, you are entitled to everything in this world. Naruto then leaned close to his face, no more. I will take away the very thing that you want by stealing from others. With some hand seals and some chakra, Naruto slammed his hand on Sasuke's chest, an intricate seal in shape of a star appearing on the area. I have sealed away all your chakra. At this point, even a genin can beat you in term power. You will no longer be able to use your Sharingan and Rinne Sharingan. He finally allowed Sasuke to go unconscious. As he turned back, he was greeted with a thunderous roar and applause from everyone gathered. No one had liked the Uchiha. The way he treated them like dirt. Now Naruto had beaten him and made him unable to be a ninja, they could rest in peace, no longer afraid that Sasuke Uchiha will turn like Madara Uchiha did. Naruto smiled, one step closer to becoming the Hokage. He would enjoy the date he had with Temari today, as the day was off to a great start for him.